Hey guys, Coach Logan here, looking to record another Blitz video, so let's see who we can find. Alright, Nick March, 2337, strong opponent. Okay, we'll go E4. See what defense he plays, so it's going to be a Sicilian. It's probably going to be a Knight Orf or a Dragon, maybe a Classical. Okay, so it's a Knight Orf. Alright, I'm going to try to stay ahead in time. Especially when I record these Blitz videos, I'm always just getting myself into time trouble and then playing poorly, so if I need to explain stuff, I'll do it in the post-game, unless it's easy to explain. Okay. This rook on the third rank is a lot of times a good defender against some of their kind of typical tactical ideas in the Sicilian. You know, like all those rook takes c3 sacrifices, this rook is good at covering against those. And sometimes it can slide to d3 or c3 if need be. Alright, so he's forcing me to exchange bishops, that's okay. Alright, let's go king b1. Just getting off the c file. Can't really think of a better move here, so it's probably a good time to play that. At some point I want to play f5 and try to provoke him into playing e5 and then weakening the d5 square. So I think now would actually be a good time for that. If he weakens the d5 square, that makes my knight on c3 a lot better. And I'll need to figure out some way to use my knight on d4 because it'll probably get kicked to b3. If he trades, I don't mind so much. But I'll have to come up with some plan for that. Okay, so we'll go back to b3. If he trades, I'm okay with that. It'll hurt my pawn structure a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, I'm gonna take. Okay, here. He wants to take on b3, maybe? Actually, I think now might be a decent time to play knight to d5. Yeah, this will open my rook up to defend b3, so if he's to take me, I can take back with the rook. My dream now would be to get this knight into a5 and then into c6. And if he takes my knight, I'm going to take back with the rook. Also, taking with this pawn makes my bishop stronger here on this diagonal. Okay, so he's not really threatening to take. Okay, he's stopping me from taking his knight, though. Okay. I'm going to play rook c3. Potentially with ideas of rook to c4. Maybe not. Okay, the problem is I can't move this knight because b2, he's threatening mate. It's actually not so crazy to think about sacrificing this rook for the knight. Like rook takes c5, takes with the pawn, and then I get d6 in, which reopens my light squared bishop. It'll gain tempo on this. Okay, well, it's not an option now because he's playing knight into a4, but here I can go rook c4. Unless I'm missing something. Okay, it's getting into crunch time, so I gotta play a little bit quickly. Okay. Let's go queen d3. If he takes with the queen, I have okay, so he's not taking with the queen. Okay, let's go b4. Gonna castle. If not, I'll play rook c8. Okay. Well, alright, let's bring this rook over here. Alright, I might need to find a different way for this bishop to get back into play, maybe through f1. Now I'm threatening rook c7. Okay, well, that works for me. We'll go queen a4, pinning that rook, and he resigned. Okay. Alright, maybe resigning was a little bit premature, especially given, well, I guess he was lower on time than I was. Alright, that was an interesting game. Let's take a look at this. I had a game that was similar to this that I analyzed in one of my videos. I call the video on positional play. Similar knight-arf kind of pawn structure. So I'm going to jump out of sort of the theory, which is kind of where we get to around this point. So I played, he went bishop e7, I went h4, just grabbing more space on the king's side, and you know, if he ever castles, this will accelerate my attack. Here I played rook h3. As I mentioned, that I think this rook is a really good piece on the third rank here. One thing that happens actually a lot of times in openings where you have a pretty clear third rank, like no pawns on e3 or d3 or anything like that, or no pawns like phi and kettled. Sometimes that makes it more likely, more feasible to do a rook lift, and here I think is a good example. This rook is just a very good piece on the third rank. A lot of times in the Sicilian, black has ideas connected to rook takes c3 with an exchange sacrifice, or sometimes sacrificing a minor piece on a3 and then the knight is hanging, so it's just a good piece to have. Okay, so then here I went bishop g2 because he was putting a little bit of pressure on e4 and I needed to develop that. He forced the exchange of the bishops here. I thought he was going to take back with the bishop. Although if he does that, then maybe I could get away with one of these like sacrifices on b5, something like this, knight takes, and then I pick up this pawn. Yeah, like if he plays queen b6, I think I'm much better after this. The computer's pointing out that bishop takes b2, and then queen b6, and here it's sort of like black has sacked a pawn for some pressure on my king, but actually there'll be a second pawn after rook takes d6. So that'd be interesting. He went for g takes f6. Okay, so the engine wanted me to be pretty violent right away with something like pawn to g5. I don't know how that would play out. g5, h takes g5, h takes g5. I'm hitting his rook, so he probably has to do an exchange. Rook takes h3, bishop takes h3. Let's see if he takes here, then maybe I could do... Okay, so they're saying, you know what? This would make their king side so loose here that I think this would actually be pretty good pressure on them. You know, for instance, like if they were to do something suicidal like grabbing this pawn. Okay, here I would have knight takes e6 is a good point because the f pawn is pinned, so after they take back, just bishop takes and forking the rook and f7. Yeah, so this is kind of this is how the computer would think, and that's good to keep in mind if I get a position like this again. I didn't see that, so I just played king b1, which was kind of just a useful waiting move / prophylactic move. Queen b6. Here I went f5. So my idea was more positional. So the computer wanted to just rip open lines with g5. Maybe that's the way to play this type of position. Probably is. White's, you know, black's position is not that bad statically. They have the doubled pawns, but they're not, I mean, they have a central pawn majority and a bishop pair, so white should be looking, but their king is somewhat compromised. So white should probably be looking to mess up, or to attack their king. My idea with f5 was to provoke e5 and then just weaken this square and claim that that's like, you know, something I can try to work with and use. So knight b3. He played b4. He took with his queen, knight into d5. Okay, they really wanted knight takes c5 at various points here, which is probably more prudent than what I did. But I thought knight d5, now again we get to see my rook defend this knight, which is, I think, a useful point. Rook b8, rook into c3. I was thinking of ideas with both rook c4 and even sacrificing the exchange. So he went knight a4, so that didn't come up. But like, say for instance, I'm trying to think of a move he could do here that would allow this. But say like a5 is the computer's top choice. Here I think I would, I mean, and the computer does like this for black, but I mean, it's only giving minus 0.35, and that's including an exchange sacrifice, which means white gets some interesting practical compensation. And this might be one of those things where the more the computer thinks, the more it realizes that white's, you know, actually got a little bit going here with d6. Okay, bishop to d8. I was thinking of bishop c6 here, check. The computer's mentioning some bishop d5 stuff. I don't know, but I was thinking about something like bishop to c6 check, king f8. Okay, maybe I don't have the most compensation. I don't know, maybe black is okay here. I'm not seeing a way to really bust open their king. And a4, you know, stuff like that is coming. Okay, well, all right, so he played instead knight a4, so that allowed rook c4, queen b5, queen to d3. Just, we were both low at time at this point. The computer wanted my bishop f1 idea earlier. I think this bishop just was kind of stuck behind my own pawn, so it needed to be rerouted. Knight to c5. Okay, here again, it wanted this exchange sacrifice. I think if they were to, let's see, they want to trade queens. Takes, and that's funny. Even with queens off the board, this exchange. Okay, bishop d8. Because here I'm also taking a pawn with it, so I'm not really down a full exchange. I have a knight and a pawn for rook, and also this big queenside majority and this dangerous pass d pawn. So this would actually be pretty interesting. Plus their a pawn is weak, and if they were to spend a tempo defending it with something like a5, now bishop c6 actually wins material, because bishop c6 and then knight d7, and you're picking up the rook. So, okay, so that idea was relevant in some of these lines. I went queen c3. He he played bishop d8. I was thinking if he takes this, I was going to go rook to c8 here, so that if rook takes, I can take his queen. They're saying he'd have to play bishop d8, and he'd be up a pawn here, but I have pretty good pieces. Still, I'd probably take black here. He played bishop d8 first, so I got b4 in to try to hold my pawn. a5 takes, bishop takes, queen c2. And yeah, I was amazed he didn't castle here. He left his king, you know, in the center with king d7. Now I got rook c1 in, and then bishop f1 to get my bishop back in play. And here he just ignored my threat. I don't know. He played rook to b8 and hung his queen. All right, definitely not the best game on either side, but I think I'll try to keep this idea in mind if I get this type of structure again, to really consider, you know, just blasting open the king side in this type of position. Because, yeah, statically black is doing pretty well with his bishop pair and his central majority. So I think I really need to have, to get good at these open Sicilians, you really need to have like a sense for just aggressive dynamic play. All right, I'll see you guys next video.